Hello, this is a video on Chapter 9. I have broken up Chapter 9 into two segments. This is going to be the segment 1 on language, and the second segment is going to cover intelligence. I just want to point out a couple of things regarding the learning strategies that you guys have been using and rehash with you the importance of putting things into your own words. So whenever you're learning something, put it into your own words rather than rereading what you see in the textbook or in the notes. Put it into your own words until it sounds simple and very straightforward. And the second important thing to consider is whenever you're learning something, use an example that we have discussed in class, that you have seen or read in the textbook, or that you can think of from your own life. Always tie these together because the exam, as you know, includes both questions that have to do with your general understanding of the concepts, but also questions that ask for your applying your understanding of the concepts to specific examples. All right, enough said about that. I'm going to move on and discuss two concepts we addressed in language. The first is aphasia and the second, linguistic determinism. What is aphasia? Aphasia is a neurological impairment in language. This is the point when you want to be thinking about how you can put this definition into your own words. Make it simple, make it clear, and make it be your own. And then let's think about the two forms of aphasia that we discussed, Broca's and Wernicke's. Broca's aphasia is an impairment in language production. If you remember, I showed a video of a young woman who had suffered a stroke, and she was going through an interview, and a woman was asking her her name and her age, very straightforward questions that the young woman had no difficulty understanding. She knew the answer, but it took her significant amount of effort to produce the words. I suggested that one of the mnemonics you can use is broken language production, Broca, broken language production, both starting with BR to help you remember what Broca's aphasia is all about. The second aphasia is Wernicke, very, very serious type of impairment in comprehension. So again, we saw a video of a lady who had clearly a very difficult time understanding the questions, and she also produced speech that was very fluid, however lacked meaning. It was a nonsensical stream of words. So that's Wernicke aphasia. If you're interested in viewing the videos again, go ahead and find the link on Blackboard. They're not very long, and they will clarify again what these types of aphasia are about. Okay, enough on that topic. I'm going to move on and briefly address our discussion about the relationship between language and thought. More specifically, I introduced the theory of linguistic determinism by Benjamin Worf. And basically this is the gist of it. Oopsie. The gist of it is that language determines our thought. Language determines how we think. Again, this is the time to pause. Think about your own way of explaining what linguistic determinism is in a general way. And then think of an example. And the example that I gave in class, there are quite a few examples you can use, but the example I gave in class is one of color. Different cultures, different languages have different number of words for colors. And I mentioned to you that in the Czech Republic, which is where I come from, we have relatively few names for colors. So we have a color for blue, we have a word for color blue and green, but as in the US, you guys have a name for a color called teal. That color name doesn't exist in the Czech Republic. So for someone who lives in the US, who grew up in the US, these colors would be blue, teal, green. a clear way of these words, this language, determining how we see these three different colors. Now for me, someone who grew up with the words blue and green but no teal, the way I see these colors is that this one is blue, this one is also blue, and this one is green. One example of how language determines how we see the world or how we think. On this note, I'm going to stop right here, and I will present the second section in just a moment on intelligence. I will see you next time.